Paul George, now a former Clipper, is apparently a Philadelphia 76er. That was the late breaking news by Adrian Wojnarowski at 11:30 on the West Coast. I saw East Coast guy going 2:30 in the morning. Like, hey, dude, guess what? Guy lives in Cali. Probably pretty good sense. The deal was consummated in California. Nonetheless, it changes a lot of things. Obviously, we'll get to the Clippers angle. He was the guy, the choice A of the Golden State Warriors. And now he becomes the second option, I would guess, or maybe third option with the Philadelphia 76ers. And before we get into the Sixers in terms of will it actually work to win them a championship, the most important point to point out is if you look at the downfall of television ratings in the NBA, okay, there's a couple different things. One, it's obviously been hurt by the rise of the National Football League. The NFL is incredibly popular. It is a successful freight train that is basically out of control. Whatever they want, whatever they do, whatever they put on TV, draft, exhibition game, you put it on a streaming service. You put it this year. They're going to do a Friday night game to start the season, right, with the Eagles and the Packers. Like, whatever they do is successful. So that obviously has been part of it. The post-Jordan era, right, when Jordan leaves, that's when we saw a dramatic downturn, and then it turned around a little bit once they got scoring back, and you got Steph Curry and LeBron James and Kevin Durant. So some of it is that Steph Curry and LeBron James, not only is there fatigue with LeBron James, he's been doing it for so long, but they're also West Coast. And one of the things I learned when I was at ESPN for 10 years was something that was data-driven. And they would tell you that 66% of sports television viewers are in the Eastern time zone. And then you look at the direct correlation and what's happened to the NBA's ratings, and it's not that hard to see that when the Knicks became bad, the Celtics went through a bad stretch. The Sixers have gone through stretches, right? They were irrelevant when they were trusting the process. And though the Sixers are better now and the Knicks are better now you can see, based upon what the Knicks have done this offseason, what the Sixers are doing in this offseason, and, of course, what the Celtics have done in the season and in the postseason and winning a championship. You give me Boston, you give me Philly, you give me New York, and this is I'm not going to say it's going to save the league. The league wasn't in the process of dying, but, man, is it a shot in the arm. Because, again, data tells you 66% of sports television viewers are in the Eastern time zone. There's a different level of intensity, different level of passion, hatred, if you will. And when you bring Paul George in and you have a big three, no matter how successful it is, like, look, they're going to be in the playoffs. They're in the playoffs this year. They're going to push the envelope of how good they can be. It's better for Philadelphia to be good than for Cleveland to be good. Sorry, that's just reality to it. It's better for New York to be good than Boston or Philly, and definitely than Cleveland to be good. And they are. And the Boston Celtics are the model, and everybody is chasing that model. I woke up in a good place today, but no one woke up in a better place than Adam Silver. Because there's nothing artificial about it. He had nothing to do with it. We still have the different tax aprons which go into play here as we learned the salary cap yesterday. We learned the apron numbers yesterday. But the NBA is tracking. When you have quality teams in Boston, in New York, in Philadelphia, in Los Angeles, and we'll get to the Lakers and what it means for the Lakers, you're in a good place. It doesn't mean that small market teams can't compete. Oklahoma City's not going anywhere. Milwaukee should be better. Look, do I think they're a championship caliber team? Probably not. I think Damian Lillard has not only peaked, but he's been exposed, especially for what he does on a real championship caliber team. It doesn't mean that those teams can't compete, but for people to watch them, it has nothing to do with the quality of the team. Like, Minnesota's got dudes, but they're in Minnesota. They're not a draw. The Knicks are a draw. The Sixers are a draw. The Nuggets are not. And then you turn around and you look at the Clippers. And I saw a pretty good quip. They have a picture of Paul George with a hard hat on visiting the Intuit Dome back when the Clippers did it. Turns out he wasn't that into it. I liked it. I did. I liked it. I chuckled. I didn't chortle, but I chuckled. But has there ever been a franchise that has had more coulda, shoulda, woulda than the Clippers? I mean, honestly, they've done most things right here since they changed ownership groups. It doesn't really matter, but they've done most of the right things. I mean, Ty Lue's a fabulous coach. He's really, really good. Does he get a little too caught up in ISO ball? Sure, but it worked for him with the championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, you fall back on the things that you've won with. But they could never, with Lob City, be healthy. Right? It was always Blake Griffin and then Chris Paul, just unhealthy at unlucky moments. And then when the NBA changed and became about, offensive dexterity and ball movement, they were still stuck in kind of that old era of Chris Paul overhandling the ball, but out of necessity because they didn't have other guys that were dominant ball handlers. Blake Griffin went from a dominant force to, as he aged, but also as it became a lot more about pace and space and skill, between DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin, it didn't work in the new era, and Chris Paul could never stay healthy. Then they flipped it and changed and went all in on Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, winning biddie wars over everybody and moved mountains to get Paul George. And then either Kawhi wasn't healthy or Paul George wasn't healthy, and they just couldn't get over the hump. The coulda and shoulda and woulda. There was a stretch of time in each of the past two seasons where, by my estimation, the Clippers were the best team in the NBA. But it wasn't the stretch of time that mattered in the playoffs. And between Kawhi just not being healthy either of the last 2 years, this is what you got. This is what you got. And obviously, look, I understand the popular perception is that big threes don't work. And, Daryl Morey loves his big threes. The question is, do we think Houston didn't work because they didn't win a championship, or because of style of play, or both? Right? What was it, 26, 28 consecutive missed three-point shots? Right? They were pretty darn close. They couldn't get over the hump. I look at, in many ways, I do look at Morey's time in Houston much like Billy Beane in Moneyball when they were in the playoffs and couldn't get over the hump. Just because they didn't win didn't mean it didn't work. It got them to new heights. It got them to a level that their overall talent shouldn't have gotten them to. So I like this one. I mean, I think in talking, NBA people will tell you that Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic, and Joker are the three best players in the league. Embiid can be the most dominant. And now to Tyrese Maxey, you add Paul George. That's pretty good. It's not just, and I know that you're sitting there going like, hey, the Suns had all these scores. Yeah, but the Suns had a bunch of wings. They didn't have a big. They didn't have a point guard. It's not the case with the Sixers. And now you give the Sixers a versatile weapon who can guard and is probably better off being the second best or third best player on a team. I like it more than most people do. And I love what the Knicks have done, and the Celtics are really, really good. I mean, I guess the question is who's the fourth starter and what's their bench actually look like, but we'll get to that. In the meantime, Paul George is the Philadelphia 76er. It's good for the league. It's good for the rivalry with New York. It's good for a rivalry with the Celtics. And now we'll see what they are able to put around. They got Kelly Oubre back as well. But what are they able to put around those four players to form a team?